Hey everybody, welcome to part 4 in my Tikka CTR video series. Last time we shot the 140 grain Spear Gold Dot and 142 grain Sierra Match King with Reloader 26. This time we're once again going to shoot the 142 grain Sierra Match King, but this time with Reloader 16, and I also picked up a box of 147 grain Hornady ELD match. We're going to be shooting that with the Reloader 16 as well. We're going to be using Starline large primer brass and Federal 210 match primers. This time I wanted to seat the bullets out quite a bit longer and see what effect that had on the numbers and on accuracy. Up till now we've been shooting them at the manufacturer's recommended cartridge overall length. This time I wanted to stretch them out as far as possible. So on the 147 grainers, I was able to seat them out to 2.950 inches. Got us a little bit closer to the lands, but that's the maximum magazine length on this rifle, which is very generous, by the way. But because this rifle has such a long throat, there's almost nothing you can do to get close to the lands on it. So even at that maximum length, which is a very long cartridge overall length, I'm still jumping 50 thousandths. On the 142 grain Sierra Match King, the longest I can seat them is 2.810. That's because I like to maintain a minimum amount of bullet in the neck that equals the diameter of the bullet. Because of the shape of the boat tail on that Sierra Match King, has a very long boat tail on it. That's the longest I could seat them and still have the amount of neck tension that I like. On the ELD match, the boat tail's not nearly as long, so I was able to seat them out quite a bit longer. Things got a little interesting on this. I was scratching for data for the Reloader 16 and these two bullets, ELDMs. I decided to load from 42.1 to 43.3 grains, which should have been a very modest charge. There shouldn't have been anything there to really worry about. And on the 142 grain Sierra Match King, I decided to load from 42.3 to 43.6 grains, and those are all in 3/10 of a grain increments. So I had 25 rounds of each. Got them all loaded up, went out to the range, and immediately a snowstorm hit. This happened a bunch of times. It's a real pain in the ass. Chronograph doesn't want to work. Cameras don't like it. It's just bad. My starting charge, I was already seeing a little pressure sign. And because it was my starting charge, I kind of convinced myself that those little marks were already on the brass from previous firings. I didn't want to think too much of it. Because my chronograph wasn't working, I had no idea what the velocity was. Shot a decent group, well under an inch, but I was a little worried about those pressure signs. So on the next group, 42.4 grains, I shot 2 rounds of that and had major pressure signs. Primer completely flat, right out to the edges. And not just an extractor mark, or an ejector mark I should say, but actually a very pronounced ejector mark and enough to raise up a burr. So it was way over pressured. So I stopped right there. I went to the 142 grain Sierra Match King, my starting charge of that at 42.3 grains. Same thing. I was already seeing some pressure signs on the brass. I called the whole day a wash. The snowstorm, chronograph not working, starting charges over pressure. It was just bad. I went and shot some handguns for a while to blow off some steam. Felt better after that. And then I came home and put my kinetic bullet puller to work. Dismantling 40 or so rounds that were unfired. Those first charges that I had planned to shoot, I decided that would be my ending charge because there was some pressure signs, so good place to stop right there, right? And those 2 rounds from the second charge of 147 grain, I actually culled those 2 pieces of brass. I pitched them. They were a big burr raised up, and you know brass is cheap. Obviously, they were under stress. Probably a good chance the primer pockets were getting loose, and it was the fourth firing on that brass, so no loss. I just threw them out. So went back to the drawing board, and I loaded up the 147s. I loaded from 40.9 grains to 41.8 grains in 3/10 of a grain increments, and the 142 grain Sierra Match Kings from 41.1 grains to 42 grains. And then went back out to the range. Much better weather. Snowstorm was over. Chronograph cooperated. So let's take a look at the results. So as you can see, the Tikka clearly likes the 147 grain ELDM. At least with Reloader 16 it does. Excellent velocity, really good groups all across, decent numbers, and at 41.8 grains, those are the best numbers I've seen out of this rifle so far. Moving along very fast, average velocity at 2830, standard deviation of only 3.4, extreme spread of only 10. That is fantastic. And 0.59 inch, decent, but as you can see, we've got 4 rounds touching, one off by a 1/4 inch. In the video, you can't really see what's going on, but shooting at 100 yards, and at about 60 yards, there was a bank of ice fog creeping through. It's an interesting phenomenon that we get quite a bit around here. A little dip in the ground, and this ice fog will just kind of creep through like a snake. So I was having a really hard time seeing the target. I was never 100% sure if I was holding center of the dot. Did the best I could, and maybe that group's a fluke, but the numbers sure aren't. At least I hope they're not. Very excited about that. And as you saw in the first 2 groups, first 2 were 4 rounds because of the 2 pieces of brass that I called out of this lot of 50. So basically, this will be what I consider the max charge with this rifle. That was the one I was seeing pressure signs with. Shot a .77. I kind of estimated the velocity based on how much we were climbing per group. I figure it was probably around 2850 and showing pressure signs. So definitely was opening back up again at that point. And I think 41.8 grains of Reloader 16 with this bullet, this primer, and brass combination. That, I believe, is going to be my main target load with this bullet. Outstanding BC with this bullet. I'm so glad that it shoots well in this rifle, and getting velocity like that out of a heavy bullet, I am just super excited about that. On the 142 grain Sierra Match King, I think I'm done with them. We shot a decent group down here, 0.61, standard deviation of 16.3, extreme spread of 37. And we actually had kind of a little velocity inversion. Next group, velocity actually dropped a little bit. Numbers were really close, same standard deviation. But the groups just aren't that great. And it's jumping close to 200 thousandths to get to the lands. And there's nothing more I can do with the 142 grain Sierra Match King. I believe I'm done with it. Which is fine because they're crazy expensive. The 147 ELD match is quite a bit less expensive than the Sierra Match King, and they shoot a lot better, at least in this rifle. Tickled about that. Beautiful day at the range. Sometimes you just got to know when to say when and walk away from it. That snowstorm was killing me. Everything about the previous day was bad. This day was beautiful. Loving the numbers and can't wait to try some new loads with this. We're working it down pretty well to the end of this series. We've got a couple good target loads, this 147 grain especially. And then I'm also going to try for one of my hunting bullets, the 143 grain ELDX. Also has a fantastic BC. If this shoots like the 147 grain ELDM, I might be able to just use this bullet and have one load for target shooting and hunting. That would be awesome. We'll see what happens. Really loving the Reloader 16, but guys, be careful with it because you don't ever assume that published data is safe. That's why everyone recommends start low and work up. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time, everybody.